Tonight, we continue our discussion of Amazon's sci-fi show, The Peripheral. Then we resume our Star Trek DS9 discussion with battle lines and the storyteller. All this coming up right now on The Writer Brothers. And welcome back to your Tuesday night home for the next 4 years for Star Trek Deep Space Nine and the remaining couple of weeks for however much more Peripheral we get. My name is Petey York, and I am, of course, joined by no longer the Halloween decoration, Mr. Corione, witch in residence, just a regular old witch now. And, of course, Pollo Zapatos, a.k.a. John, a.k.a. wearing the team colors, as always, with pride. Gentlemen, how are we doing? How are we doing this week? How was our week of shows and shows this week?
Well, doing really great. I see you're wearing your your fleet shirt there for your civilian fleet shirt there. I just want to say, given that we're moving into November, thank you very much for your service. Being a red shirt is incredibly difficult, but you did it right. So,
I went black instead.
Yeah, there we go. But yeah, otherwise doing great. Halloween was raw.
Oh wait, that's actually worse. That means I'm Section 31. Ugh.
Yeah, ugh. Dude, nobody wants to be a spy. Trust me on this. Not even plain and simple tailors want to be spies.
Nope. I thought it was cool. Cool idea. And then I watched. When I was watching when Homeland was good for that first season, and then I was just like. I thought, how cool would it be to do that type of stuff? And then as I got older and realized how horrible things are, I'm like,
yeah.
No,
I saw a lucrative money-making industry like many of the spies do.
Yes.
Yeah. So
I suppose using the Enterprise to I don't know, to bring spice to various developing worlds would kind of be a bad idea.
Arende writes in, moving into November. Remember the 5th of November of gunpowder, treason, and plot. I know of no reason why the gunpowder treason should ever be forgot. Next week, Arende. But this week,
also, Nemesis of Eden, we are having an awesome day. Thank you for being the first commenter. Forgot to write that one in. Read that one out, I should say.
yeah, we probably should catch up on comments that we get before the show, at least while we can, while we're still small and can manage everybody. But, you know, once we get 10 concurrent viewers, you know, it's out of our hands. Now, Amazon's The Peripheral continues to keep my attention. I hope the same can be said for you guys. John, since you're such a huge fan of the star, why don't you go ahead and give us a quick summary of what happened this week and give us your thoughts.
Well, so this week we've gotten a more exposition-heavy episode telling us a little bit more of the known players and a little bit more background on the setup. We open with learning exactly who Pickett is and what he intends to do to those that try to take his territory. A rather grotesque ritual murder of sorts, because he does use the murder and the bodies of those that he murders to broadcast to the entirety of the crime world. Don't. And then, as we know from the first 2 episodes, he is the crime lord of this territory. So it's not really a don't because we don't like crime, it's a don't because I'm the new dad. And from there we get more information about 2090 or 2100, less in terms of how everything got there, but more in terms of who matters to who. We meet Wolf, aka Wilfred, aka Wolfgang, and Alita as children, and we meet their mom. I don't think we met their dad.
We met him briefly.
Briefly.
Very briefly.
He was at the Dog and Pony show when they picked him out.
Right. Okay, there we go. So we met the dad, but that was it. And we get this idea that children and their parents being separated is such an issue that it is a state honor to take in children, orphans.
Well, what I got as an impression was that there was some sort of massive viral outbreak or something along those lines, and the population was decimated, and these were kids that had survived, and they were now trying to get them new homes because these kids' parents were most likely deceased.
Yeah, but that's what I couldn't figure out the source of the total death. But I could see that there are so many orphans that at this point, like, not only is it like there's the traditional government stand of taking in orphans, but then now there's an honor attributed to it. Like, it's so bad that, like, especially when we finally see where these families, where the parents actually reside, like they are kings and queens by today's standards, and in 2090 they are like super wealthy, or 2100 they are super elite wealthy. And so for them to be the ones stepping into the supporting the orphan cause, that's the part that really,
well, I got the impression
shows how much of it's become like a national need.
Yeah, I got the
Real
impression
quick.
it's very similar to...
Real quick, Nemesis of Eden Red saying, back to work. I'll check out the replay later. Stay awesome, everyone. Hey, have a good night, Nemesis. Thanks for checking
Thanks
in
for
with
coming.
us. And yeah, we're sorry to see you go, but we totally understand. We would love for us
Get
to
that
just be
bread.
able to have you sit here and hang out with us all night, but we also have jobs too. So
Yeah, go get that paycheck, bro.
Yeah, we appreciate you coming though.
Yeah. So, no, I got the impression that it was very similar to, like, the end of World War II, where in London, where there was a lot of bombings, there were a lot of displaced people, and people moved up the economic ladder very quickly because there was simply nobody else in the way, and that these kids needed homes, so it was like a civic duty to raise these kids.
Yeah, and so from there, once we've been introduced to more of how things got to where they are, or things were prior to Alita and prior to 2100, but not so much at a full-on, like, here's what's happened. It's a really nice light exposition dump. They're setting the stones, but not necessarily making us put it all together right now and figure it all out and be ready for the next episode to come crashing in and change all the rules, right? And we also get more information about how the synaptics work. And to the point that I got a lot of Pacific Rim vibes. I don't know if you guys got that.
A little bit.
I haven't seen
Mind
it, so
meld.
Oh
The
God,
Vulcan
you haven't
mind
seen
meld
Pacific
even.
Rim? Dude,
Oh,
we're
the cartoon
gonna have
series
to sit down.
We'll
supports
probably-
the movies feel like after the cartoon series, you're like, oh, there is a whole story, and then you watch the movie and you're like, cool, live action.
Well, the month of January, which is just, you know, a giant Monday, that might be a good month to bust out some movie classics, since
Well, here's what I'm gonna say. January 30th is my birthday, and I feel like for my birthday stream, maybe we will sit down and watch it all together. I'm working on a system to set it up so that the three of us can watch stuff together when one of us streams it out to the other two.
do a little live react. Yeah, no, that could
Yeah.
be
Hell yeah, that'd be awesome.
that'd be good. So yeah, I mean the disease thing that definitely explains why some of those large structures weren't completed. Why there's half-assed built statues everywhere, and well, not everywhere. They almost had Michelangelo's David completed. And then a catch up on some fan mail real quick. Arende says, as a beekeeper, I was a bit pissed. LOL. That tea. I have a month off during the holidays. Can't wait. Oh, congratulations. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I don't, but I also don't. Well, I technically work full time. I only get paid for half of it. You know, I got a pretty decent life. I'm not complaining too hard. I just need more. But who doesn't?
I am curious why you are hit about that beekeeper scene, aside from the part where they were saying like the bees keep going extinct like every 5 to 12 years, and it is literally on the rich beekeeper basically revitalizing the colony just in case right now.
Yeah, but
I'm not
seemed...
sure if that's what you were pissed about, or if you were pissed about the fact that that tea was used to kill the next part of the story, which is everybody that has any relation to Alita.
Hey, hold on. This isn't Star Trek
Tyranny.
Discovery, okay? It didn't kill the next part of the story.
No, none of this kills the story. So, like, that was the nice thing about this episode, is we did still get plot moving, just more details to back it up. And so we go from learning that Alita and Wolf are related through trauma and through parentage due to being orphaned around the same time.
Yeah.
So they and were a bonded pair in the group home,
Right.
which is what led to them maintaining their relationship through the orphan process, because the original family's goals was just one white girl, which is an interesting note, that like the show isn't shying away from the fact that like people, even when they're trying to help the orphans, are still really, really picky about which orphans they help.
Well, okay.
And that is a known fact about this boy.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's not unreasonable, I don't think, for people to select whoever they want and to try to have their kid,
Not
kid
unreasonable.
that they're looking for look like them, but at the same
still
time,
a known issue since Stuart Little, when they picked a
Yes.
mouse over all of the orphan children.
So, yeah, I mean, and to address the bee scene, like, I get why you'd be annoyed at that, because it makes people more afraid of bees, and being a beekeeper, you want people to be pretty cool and
Yeah, so as you're saying it, go ahead and read. Go ahead, John. Take the fan mail.
Yeah, what was aggravating is using
Hold
bees
on,
as
hold
a
on,
weapon. It
Remember, audio podcast.
Arendi writes in, what was aggravating is using bees as a weapon. It creates warped perceptions about the dangers and lack thereof of bees. Not terribly angry, but there's a lot of gullible people out there.
Yeah.
Um,
Go ahead.
yeah, I mean, I get that.
As somebody who's deathly allergic to bees, just by circumstance of genetics,
Wait, you're
I've
allergic to
always
bees?
had. You don't remember my sore throat that one time? It was like
You got a sore
like a
throat a lot
week
when we
and
were
a
growing
half.
up, but oh.
no, I mean like a bee took my throat and made it like this big for like a week, and that's when we found out it was deathly. It was
I don't
a death
recall.
allergy.
Yeah, the only allergen I remember is Graham and nuts, which is
No,
ironic
bees
because
and-
he is nuts.
Right. Well, so for me it's bees, and I really liked how they described the importance of bees before using it as a weapon, because I think bees there is a healthy amount of fear that's necessary, but that healthy fear helps to make more give bees the space they need to pollinate appropriately. Especially from what I've heard about them possibly being interfered with by EMF given off by your phones. If people are shy from bees, then they're going to keep their phones away from bees. But I do see that, like Corian, you're getting into the idea that if we weaponize bees, then people are going to start to kill more bees, and that is.
Or at the very
That I
least,
think is where you need the healthy respect for nature, which is what the lady was describing in that scene, or the doctor is what everybody called her. She was like, everybody keeps killing off the bees, and now it's gotten to the point that like we can't hardly grow crops without having beekeepers just doing it themselves, and they're also the only ones capable of farming because they're the only ones with bees.
Yeah.
And so I think the reverence for bees is absolutely necessary, but also the fear.
Yeah.
They hurt, and
At the
some
same
of us will
time,
die.
Arende, I personally would have preferred an explanation of, well, these are specialized bees that have been distorted with the DNA of nature's asshole, also known as the wasp.
Well,
and
they did describe that it was a hornet pheromone that just sent the bees into a frenzy.
okay, now that pisses me off.
Well, no, I don't know. I know there is some relationship between the bees and the hornets and the wasps that, like, if certain pheromones will set off certain.
Bees and hornets
family.
don't get along. They're not friends.
Not as much as, wasps
So basically,
and
they
hornets,
made this
thankfully.
woman a walking hornet, and all of the bees were like, "Get this out of our village."
Yeah.
And that's what happened. It was less. To me, it felt a whole lot less just sci-fi bees are killers. It was very much like there's a natural thing that bees do, and then we just put it into your tea, which is the sci-fi part. We made it so that you now sweat that thing. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, like, I do understand Arendi's point, though, about, he would much rather everyone have a lot of respect, like a healthy respect for a wild animal, but still, a fair bit of love for bees because they are super important. So I do get why he'd be a little annoyed at someone using them as a weapon. But I also feel like I really felt like it wasn't the bees' fault, that they were almost being tricked into being a weapon. And, that's...
And I felt like they set that up very thoroughly. Like, she took a lot of time to explain her relationship to the bees. If anything, Arende, it's if you were a villain and maintained beekeeping while becoming this super rich villain.
Yeah, so basically what we're saying is...
That sounds like the most unenthusiastic villain superpower. Now tremble before my beekeeping might!
No.
What?
A villain who has a beekeeping hobby. It's like if Arendi, while maintaining his beekeeping hobby and passion, also
became a supervillain.
Support it, became a supervillain doctor.
Right. But see, if he used it as a superpower, that'd be kind of silly. Now get ready to drown in my delicious golden honey. Oh, well, at least death is gonna taste good. Ooh.
There is the Hive from Teen Titans. That was one bee keeping, and then there's Worm, and the main character from Wild Bow's story. That character messed with bugs a lot and maintained bees and hornets.
Yeah, see, Petey, I was thinking more along the lines of, Wait a minute, bee finger, do you expect me to talk? No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to get stung repeatedly. I mean...
That's pretty good. No, dang it, I'm trying to think of a good Sting pun off the top of my head, but all that's coming to mind is that creepy song. Oh, can't you see? You belong to me.
Now, that being said, I mean, she was seriously putting out Bond villain vibes.
Oh, absolutely.
The whole episode. On top of that, I'm starting to think I know what the plague was, because I think I've got it. We are seeing examples again and again and again of nanotechnology in the future.
From the dissolving bike.
Yeah, to the dissolving steps that didn't actually dissolve. Or the dissolving walkway that didn't actually dissolve. To all of it. I think we're dealing with a nanotech virus, and that's what screwed up their future so badly.
And
all right.
Arendi writes in.
Go ahead.
Sorry, Arendi writes in. Don't get me wrong. They're not completely without danger. Then again, drinking too much water can be dangerous. It felt unnecessary. But then again, I am biased. Whatever puts bees in unjustifiably bad light aggravates me.
Yeah.
And you're absolutely right to have a passion towards bees being recognized as actual useful parts of our ecosystem. And I think that's where the show, yes, it was the villain highlighting it, but we don't have enough narrative aside from like the Bee movie and movies since the Bee movie really pointing to the importance of bees. There's a lot of notes about it. If you watch any like zombie movie, any movie about the world terror, there's always the news clippings about the bee population dwindling, but that's like a news clipping. In this show, there's an entire whole scene that both drives the plot and reminds the entire audience about the importance of bees, whether it's today or in 2100. And I think it does use them as a weapon, which can definitely be seen as a negative.
Yeah.
But also it does take the time to highlight their total importance overall. And I think
but no, I
admirable.
I will go in a little bit further, Randy. I do think that there should have been a bit more. Like I said, there should have been a bit more genetic engineering involved. Because let's be honest, the Wasp is literally the Camaro driving trailer park king trash of the bug world. They serve no purpose. They're annoying. You just want to get rid of them all.
You realize we just lost all of our Wasp subscribers. I'm just saying, right?
Riddance. I don't want that crap here. Like it's just, oh man. Like I swear that the Wasp was designed by Satan because it serves no ecological purpose. It gets unlimited stings, which is bullshit and overpowered. It bites you too. It doesn't just get to sting you, it gets to bite you. Like, what purpose does this bug serve?
Does to remind you what happens when you disrespect bees for so long. They just turn into hostile enemies.
Okay, but they also eat bees.
It becomes a permanent enemy.
They're attacking bees too.
They are in themselves like.
No, look.
Result of
the gods gave us bees to remind us of how wonderful and tasty the world can be. But they also gave us wasps to remind us how terrifying the world can be.
A little too terrifying sometimes. Like, a bee gets one sting, and it has to sacrifice its life. A wasp? Nah, it's going to town on your face. Bullshit. It's bullshit. Anyway. Randy writes in, I realize what you're saying, Boyo, but like I said, I'm biased. Let's just say I feel no pity when a solo wasp lands on a frame, and I place that frame with the wasp along with it in the hive.
20,000 versus one fight.
I've seen those videos, and those are awesome. Because, well, one, they're killing wasps, and two, it's a wasp getting owned by bees.
No, man. Bees are, when it comes to defending their hives, they are hardcore individuals.
Oh, yeah.
I respect the heck out of them.
Yeah,
you know?
same. Very much the same.
As far as unified tribes go, bees are the standard that we should all dream to achieve. They work together to support each other, and then they also fight to save even just one of them.
Yeah. So I think that. So by the end of the. Oh great! I'm blanking on the guy's name. I really should pull up the IMDb
Wolf?
page before. No, the back in 2032, the town.
Oh, the brother or the drug boss?
The drug boss. Well, do we even know he's a drug boss? Oh wait, yeah,
Mhm.
he's a pharmaceuticals boss.
Oh, it's way more than implied.
It
Like it's
that's right.
regularly he is.
We practically walk through a meth
He is-
lab. Like,
Yeah, that's right. We did.
Well, yeah,
Right,
and,
that's right.
and
Now I'm
she's
remembering.
buying. She's like, I can't afford to go to Farmer John or Pharma John or whatever they called it to get the pill made and like sold to them. So she has to go to Mr. Pickett's boys, drug dealers.
So, fan mail from
Yeah.
Merendi. Is that windshield washer fluid, Corian? He's referring to my drink. No, I am enjoying. You know, the problem with being a witch is routinely you wind up with weird mystical creatures moving in. So I had to get rid of a Smurf village, and juicing Smurfs is probably one of my favorite hobbies. So, you know, I'm drinking Smurf tonight.
I could have thought that was Romulan ale.
Would have worked too.
No. Blue milk.
But the thing is, with Pickett, I don't know where they're going to take this character, to be honest, because by the fact that he so willingly agreed with Fisher's proposal without really giving too much pushback. See, that's the mark of good writing, is when you can take a villain and you
He
can
didn't
kind
agree
of...
to it without pushback. He demanded to know the stick, and he just didn't like. We even see him not like the euphemism. Like he paints this, and he's like, okay, that doesn't bother me, and then he shows him how much what that euphemism really meant in terms of like, I'm not talking to anyone right now. All of your boys have like comm jammers and stuff like that. You see us just talking, right? And it's right there, just through the glass in front of him. Like, that's a level of like in all forms of security, that is the worst opponent ever. One that can talk to his teammates and you can't hear.
Well, I mean, it goes even beyond that when you think about it, because it's not just talking to your buddies. They know your thoughts as you're having them.
Right.
So if you're sitting there, you're literally having a discussion between, I mean, imagine being able to have a discussion between your team going, well, I'm thinking this is going to turn into violence. Let's get ready for violence. And everybody gets that same thought. Everyone gets that same feeling. Everyone gets that same emotion at the same time. That's a hard thing to deal with because everybody
gets that, so you get theirs too.
Yeah.
Also,
and then you get the guy next to you, and so it's like however many people in the squad compounded on top of the squad, so it's a compound interest of emotion and focus.
Real quick, Arende would like to know, Corion, do you have an orange cat by chance?
I do not have an orange cat. I do, however, have a gray and black cat. So,
I
you
have
know,
an
close.
cat. Somebody
I've got a tuxedo tabby and a
voice.
void. But no, what I was trying to get at was they're putting him off to be like this big crime boss, and you know, he's just one bad guy that, you know, they got rid of the Hell's Satans, and then now they bring him in, and it's like, I think the way that this one's going to be written is they're going to kind of turn him into more of an anti-hero. In the fact that, yeah, he sucks, he's corrupted, he's bad, but he's also got different motivations behind what he does. And we kind of see this in the beginning when the fact that they don't, you know, he doesn't immediately go, oh, I'm being offered money to go whack the Fishers? Okay. No. He goes, all right. Well, first of all, he gives them to his trophy wife, she then takes the situation and analyzes it, gives him some options, and he thinks about them. And then he's given a different option, which he then...
Wait, no, first I don't think he's gonna be an actual anti-hero. I think he is going
He might
to
be chaotic neutral.
I really get he is logical evil.
I can see that too.
In the sense that he's not a villain, but he's a mob. I really get the sense that he is a Sopranos type character. He has a code. It's very not legal, but as long and that's what we noticed, especially when the brother Fisher, Burton, goes to meet him. He goes, "Look, we're in a bit of a situation, but it doesn't impact any of you.
Yeah.
Like nothing about your work, nothing about your business." And you see Prickett hype up, okay, this person is coming to me, telling me they're dealing with rogue elements, and I've met the rogue elements. I didn't believe them to be rogue elements. I believe them to be cops, setting me up, for murder. And he tells the wife that he's can't go back to Cabo because 90% or Havana because we're 90% sure it's DHS being hacked and stuff like that. And then for Burton to know about that traffic, know about that conversation, and then to remind him, this is not invading on your territory, but it's expensive and they are willing to pay a lot of money, so I'm gonna pay you more with a guarantee that as long as you help me stay alive, you're gonna keep getting more. That's the big thing that I think we see about Prickett's character is he's not a villain. He's just a criminal.
Yeah,
but he's a criminal with a personal code according to that criminal. And so I really do see him being capable of switching sides at any moment, but not purely because he's evil.
Yeah.
It's all gonna be his motivation.
Yeah, the way I would like to describe it is in a world of black and white morality, he works on more of a yellow and green morality. It's just alien to what the current rest of the situation is. He works under his own rules. He has his territory that he wants, and so long as he's allowed to remain the big fish in his pond, he's fine with it. It's as soon as something tries to invade his pond or take it over, that's when he's going to act.
Right.
And I think the Fishers did absolutely the right thing by, one, coming to him from a place of respect. Two, making it worth his time to do nothing.
Three, laying their cards on the table.
Yeah, exactly. And laying out exactly what will or will not happen, depending on his choices. And then letting him decide what he wants to do.
And paying him afterward. He didn't say you'll be paid by the end of the week. He said, no, the money is en route. Send your boy to go pick it up. It's being printed. Right? Because we saw a time dilation of they bought the fabrication store facility. They now are printing the money to pay this gentleman, and obviously the way money is printed, it's not. It's
apparently legal to do so.
Nobody got mad about it. Yeah. He didn't go. Why did you pick it up from the print facility? The print facility can print money, and there's a code that you have that pulls from your account somehow, right? So and that to me was the really fun thing is they have set this show up that there are certain rules that they aren't going to tell you, but they work so well with just, I guess I could see a future where that makes sense. Mm-hmm. And you can put your own headcanon on it, but it's not necessarily destroying the plot in any way. No. And also I like how we all have similar points about this episode. That is what was intriguing about it versus getting into the nitty gritty and we're all well, I care more about this. No, the story all drew us to the same, these are the things that are worth talking about, but also there's also fun stuff around it that may or may not make logical sense, but it's just fun stuff because it's clear what the main points are.
Yeah, there was another little piece I thought was interesting, and that's the android cop.
I was about to bring that segue into that next.
Yeah. And here's why I found it so interesting. We have been informed a few different ways that the population in 2100 is significantly reduced. And I think that it's interesting to see that certain jobs have been handed over to AI or whatever you want to call it, simply because they're in a situation of such a manpower shortage. It looks like they almost had no choice. And the fact that Wolf was so adept at playing to this cop shows a lot about his upbringing and his character development too.
And about how long the cops have been androids.
Mm-hmm.
I almost wonder if it's actually something a bit more politicized than that.
Okay.
In that humans are basically forbidden from being regular cops now because they have too much bias. And so to remove the bias protocol, they now operate on an android, which is scary as well. That's not the answer either. I mean, personally, in the future, I think a hybrid workforce of robots and humans is the best way to go for policing. They did a show on that called Almost Human, which lasted one season and was amazing and was some pretty good sci-fi, but Vox is
what
too
did you guys
stupid to
think
keep
about
that running.
the constable's justification for
Well, that's my concern
approaching-
about...
like for showing up at all? It was like, you deviated from our algorithm.
Yeah.
Like, who wrote that algorithm? Who's running that algorithm? Like, I get this, like, it's a double political entendre. Like, it's saying, like, yeah, if we do get rid of the human element, we also get rid of the individual, I can walk where I want to walk without being followed element.
We get rid of the human element, and then we also get rid of the humanity element.
Yeah,
and that's the danger.
For me, my thought is like the hybrid for cops should be 2 robots for every cop, so the cop can way more act like a liaison of justice and have 2 badass robots to back him up at any instance.
Yeah, so
the robots are doing the recording, the cops are, like, the actual officers doing their job with always having bulletproof backup.
Yeah, Arende's fan letter ties into that. Arende writes in, not just manpower shortage, dangerous jobs can result in loss of life. Less humans equals loss of life becoming more harmful. So, yeah, like what you're saying, the cop basically, cop could even just work remotely from home at that point and just have a body cam on the robot to do business with.
Or be a peripheral, basically, right?
We can also recognize that if she wasn't a peripheral,
it's turning into a better idea now.
The cop wouldn't have, like, had any more justification than, oh, you deviated from the algorithm, and that's what your point was, Corion, that, like, Wolf gave a justification for the deviation to the algorithm, that the constable was like, oh, okay, I don't belong here anymore. Like, I was here because it was weird. It was weird because of human love. I understand that. Have a good day. Yes, you can leave.
Yeah. It's like human love is inherently illogical, therefore, okay.
And it was fast, too. It was like that kiss was all the robot needed to be like, I get it.
Oh, he's kissing it. Oh.
Nice. Oh,
biological romance. Ew.
Past proposition infinity, damn it.
Algorithm could deviate. Justification acquired. Error computes.
Yeah. He kissed the peripheral. Okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I'm down with robots dating humans here. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Past prop infinity now.
Suddenly, the robots are anti-interracial.
Yeah, they're against robosexuality or something like that, you know?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a Futurama.
That's my cousin, not your robot.
Yeah. That is not your human. You may occupy my cousin's body to get around and from the convenience of your couch, but that's it. No touchy.
It is on AI of you to try to
remember
illogical this device.
Yeah, remember what the Space Pope said. Don't date robots.
So it turns out Futurama was just telling us a lot more about what happens with AI when they create their own God.
Exactly.
Yeah.
On the money.
Yeah, well, Futurama, one of the smartest shows ever to be on TV, man.
One of the smartest dumb shows, yes.
Well, no, it's the smartest show, like, with a dumb character
Hey.
that really messes with everything.
The first 5 seasons were arguably smart, and then the movies were, well, they were the movies, but
They were fun.
after the second season, or the second iteration, was just more dumb, and then I'm fearful of this third iteration coming up, which is going to be even dumber.
Well, to me, I
But
think
we'll
that's
see.
where the smart really came in, was the smart made the universe real. And the dumb was just the characters operating within this hyper-realistic universe. And that's what I love about it, is like, it was less
I don't know about
Rick
realistic.
and more Morty. And that's what made it so fun. Because I think, like, when you have a Rick-type character, it really does make the plot necessary. Whereas with Futurama, the plot didn't exist because none of them were capable of holding and let alone an entire plot.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that made it more fun.
Yeah, the first 5 seasons are still the best of that show. Every time I rewatch it, it's always the same. It's like, oh
I
man,
love
this
them
is
both.
hilarious. And then I get to the movies and I'm like, yeah, all right, those are. And then season 7
Where do you watch
starts.
the movies?
Hulu.
Are they on like the Hulu? Like just in a
Sorry,
row?
the movies are now officially season 6.
Oh,
So
okay, yeah,
season
dude, I love
6
them.
is all of the movies.
I think they're so funny.
Now that being
I
said,
like
I
that
thought
because that
Bender's
was like a
Big
nice
Score.
change of pace for a minute.
Oh, I would actually argue that Bender's Big Score was a fantastic classic sci-fi plot.
Oh, absolutely. I
Oh,
think
dude,
it's
I would
because you
argue
get.
that most of what they did was rewrite plots and obviously change all of the characters in the setting towards like the later years, and that's where it got really fun, is if you could tie the episode to the movies that they were writing over.
Yeah.
That's why I enjoyed them so much.
Yeah. No, I mean, we can
I also-
definitely.
One last piece on it. I also feel like Bender's Big Score made Jurassic Park that much more painful.
I disagree. I think it retconned it for the better.
No. I mean, painful as in it hurt my heart to realize all the terrible things that just transpired. All right.
Oh, I thought it was great because Seymour got to spend his entire life with his master in the end.
Yeah.
So no, that was one of the better retcons in my opinion. Arende says, I like Futurama, Rick and Morty as well. Yeah, for me, I mean, I love all of Futurama. It's just seasons 1 through 5 are clearly the best, and then for me, Rick and Morty season 1 through 3, and that's it.
I love them both separately because they are different sides of the same coin. Like, I really think that like Rick and Morty is where the Doctor is way more aware, and even like Futurama, like it's really that he's old. It's not that he's unaware. It's that his body is incapable of moving at Rick's body's speed, and I think that's really fun. Like, I don't see them as separate but equal. I see them as two variants of the same idea, and a really fun variants in that set, like thought, especially because they go their own ways. I do think Rick and Morty finally embraced Adult Swim, and that's what makes a lot of people turn away, but I love it. I think they're so funny.
Well, some future content we'll have to discuss. Futurama and maybe seasons 1 through 3 of Rick and Morty. But, so some other things with The Peripheral. Like, yeah, I mean, it was an exposition-heavy episode, but it wasn't boring. I haven't been bored at all.
Like I said, it wasn't a heavy dump. It was legit, like, we're gonna give you plot. The investigation into where Alita has disappeared to is ongoing, but clearly it's a lull point in the plot, and because of that, we're going to give you context, and that context is going to be equal to the plot scenes as the plot scenes move on. And it was so comfortable to me. Like, it really felt like people are learning how to write again.
Oh, one thing I do want to comment on. Having spent so much time around military people, especially post their military career, the scene with the sergeant who's missing 2 legs and a hand, and the brother Fisher, did that not seem like it was legitimately written by some genuine dudes who've been in it? Because that is the kind of ball busting I see all the damn time.
I love how real the whole setup was, because there was the perceived, man, I shouldn't acknowledge all this stuff. But then as soon
here, let
as,
me give you a
like,
hand. And he meant it genuinely at first, only to realize, oh, what did I just say?
was it, do you need a hand? Because he was offering to help when he should, and he knew that was like, man, any normal person, this is gonna fuck them up. Has he gotten too normal?
Oh,
And then
Arendi,
like for the switch to come on and they just go off on each other. That's what felt so real, is because that is how it is for military people too. Is like some of us do revert entirely back to normal and get offended at easy stuff, whereas others of us look like those guys but aren't those guys.
Well,
also,
yeah.
I'm going to Arendi writes in, hands down the best scene, Badum Tish. Arendi, if I had points to award you that mattered at all, you would be winning the internet today, because you would be
10
taking
points to
all my
Arendi
internet
Door.
points. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that whole thing, it was also just a nice middle finger to the sensitive, pussyfoot culture, because it's, regardless of the circumstance, whether or not they were war buddies or whatever the reason for their background, they were clearly comfortable enough with each other to make some funny jokes. And it played off, it was executed well.
So much as like a middle finger to sensitive, I think it was a middle finger to pain.
That too.
Like, everything he said is everything that everybody thinks, everybody feels bad about, but also like everything he thinks, and his like inner speak is yelling at him all day, every day. So for his brother, who just got him a job, who just like secured him a more noble future, obviously they're on a serious mission that has all of the qualms of like, only the strong survive, and this guy has one arm, how can he be strong? And he's being respected equally strong. He's also going to get his balls busted equally strong, but also a guy that's like busting his balls who knows all of this context and knows all of this feeling, so he's trying to decide if this is the leadership move to make, is granted the authority to make it. And that's what the whole scene was. It's a middle finger to awkward. And
Also,
that's what a lot of people are doing. They're just letting awkward win more often than not.
Also, I'm just going to say, for the record, if I wind up with a house in London in 2100, I'm totally going to take a page out of Alita's handbook and just turn it into an elaborate escape room. Because that's 100% what her place felt like.
Not only an elaborate escape room, like, why was it so connected to the main character? She's like,
so that
my dad
only
had
she
a
could
clock
find
and it was stuck at 2:15. Like, why would it, like, that's what I'm talking about, is like, why does Alita want her to follow her? Like, that's what this story is telling us. Like, that's the most obvious question, right? But also simultaneously, like, name 10 shows in the last 2 years that have so eloquently asked you to ask that question.
Oh, and then there's that small detail about the peripherals, that they need to be placed in their in some kind of biobath every couple of weeks because they deteriorate or shut down. And
Dude, I thought that was such an interesting twist from Westworld. They dry out as they sit there, like, well, because like you got to see the correlation to the Westworld pilots, or not pilots, but characters, the robots, the animatronics. And so like, I like that this was a significant deviation. Like, they dry out and you can see all these like tendrils about like what controls the face mechanisms and stuff. And they looked like zombies. It was so grotesque. But interesting.
Arende writes in, look, I injured my shoulder last Friday. My dad called me a cripple. That's the kind of humor that runs in my family. Yeah, look.
My kind of people.
Yeah,
and there's nothing wrong with that humor.
No, there isn't.
Giggle and then heal.
Oh yeah. No, look. After the fencing accident I had, where I literally got stabbed through the knee, I won't tell you how many Skyrim jokes I endured from the, well, you took a sword to the knee.
Arrow to the knee. I just saw that joke again, just as a meme for random, like, that's so funny.
I took that for a good, 2 years until Skyrim was fully played out. and then they released it on everything up to and including ATM machines, apparently. So,
yeah.
But see, that's really what I think. That's why I say it wasn't an FU to the sensitive culture, because
it was.
It would. Well, no, it's an FU to the pain, showing the sensitive culture that they can also say FU to it. They can also joke about it. You can find humor in your suffering, and when you find humor in it, it makes it a lot less painful.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's the thing that military knows best, is because we suck the suck, we also laughed in that. And while we were laughing in it, we got through it, and we're still here today. So if we can get more humor out there, get more jokes, because that's what the FU to the sensitive culture is. Stop making us not laugh at it. Stop telling us to stop laughing.
I would
Some
also
of us
say
are
that
laughing to heal.
Yeah, I would also argue that the best way to put it would be gallows humor is completely all right when it's actually in jest and not being hurtful.
Yeah, and that's why I say this show set the context so appropriately. Like, he wasn't making fun of a cripple guy on his way out of the bar. He was making his brother, who he just hired to protect his sister.
Yeah. And everybody
And
knew
so,
everybody respected each other.
Yep.
And but the jokes for even us, the audience, so much funnier is like they're laughing equally, so there is no shame in us joining in.
Yeah.
Obviously, we don't have the authority to make those jokes to that person because we don't have that relationship, but we can laugh at them laughing together.
That's it.
And that's what made it better. And I think that's why it can't be wholly critiqued as an FU to sensitive culture. Instead, it's a
I wasn't saying it was wholly
it all
that. It was
sucks,
definitely
laugh at it.
a
No, I
huge,
hear you.
definitely a
I-
huge mind your own damn
I
business
just
and
don't
learn to
know if
laugh.
the
I would
audience is
argue
gonna
that it was
hear
restoring
we
respect in the
differentiate that.
discourse.
Yeah, exactly. There
Definitely.
you go. It was a major restoration to respect in the discourse.
Yeah,
Mhm.
definitely.
Showing that the
So,
discourse can be funny despite the gravity.
Any final thoughts on Peripheral? Anything that we didn't cover that you guys think is noteworthy? I
Well,
think we did a pretty good.
I'm curious about what's going on with the mom, because they did take a major point to go like, what do you think the doctor's gonna say at her next appointment when she can see? Right, like I feel like we kind of glossed over that because it was in the first like minutes of the episode, but
yeah.
also like, what is, because they call them stubs, because as far as they're concerned, up until the point that they met them is when their histories align. So what is their interaction doing to the future of the main character's future? Because now here comes mom saying, well, I took uphill. And who owns the pharmacy now? Or not the pharmacy, but the place next to it. And all that stuff, like, how much is this future going to boost or destroy the main future?
I think
I
that
like that thought.
Yeah. I think that they're going to have to try to play it off as some sort of, it was a miracle or something.
Well, that's what I'm curious about, is because it doesn't seem like anything is going on.
That creates implications
There's
for miracles.
there's so many implications about the cops. Like, he was so ready to believe that he was being set up by the cops in his super secret private VR simulation. So like, because he like thought that tells us that everything is being watched, especially the pharma code that printed this one pill. Like, that's what I'm curious about, is like, I don't think there's any way to just play it off handsomely as a miracle.
Arende writes
there's
in.
too much control.
Arende writes in. Diverge is the word I believe you're looking for, Poyo.
Well,
Yeah.
stub is what they use
Divergent.
in the show.
Yeah.
Well, no, John.
Well, yes.
John was struggling
the
with
divergent
yeah.
timeline.
They diverge from
Variance.
to the point. Well, so they claim. I'm not entirely convinced yet. I think it could all be the same timeline, but there's no way to know just yet. But yeah, I am looking forward to episode 4. I'm not excited that this show only has 8 episodes. That's a bit of a bummer, but it is still
So far, 3 out of 8 are 7.
3 out of 8 are solid 7 so far. Yeah. No.
Yeah.
I'm hooked. Also, Call Me Chado, I wrote on one of your episodes about this show. You should definitely keep listening to our follow through, because I think this show's phenomenal. I think you got a lot of stuff wrong in terms of how they set it up. It is very much like a video game rather than like a standard TV show, and I think that's where the disconnect for you has come in your review. I really think this show's going a lot of places positive, and you should stay tuned with us.
I would actually also say, Arendi, I really appreciate that you're watching along with us, and keep it up. We're going to keep watching it, and we hope you do too.
Absolutely.
And I just in response to your last message, because I gave none, that probably is what I meant. I struggle with words, and I do appreciate you jumping in there and saying that. That's what I like to do when I'm joining in live chats, and it's really fun to see someone else likes that too.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so if we are done here, and I believe it is time to move on to our ad break.
Oh.
This stream is brought to you by CNC Cutlery. They are helping to keep the lights on here so we can continue to bring you this awesome content and discussion. CNC Cutlery, they provide all of your Civil War reenactment needs, from uniforms to various props to gear, whether you want stainless steel gear because you're a career reenactor and you're going to be out there all the time, or you want the authentic tin gear. They've got it all. Now, you might be wondering, why would such a place be, or why would we be sponsored by such a place? Well, they also are the primary provider for a lot of the different reenacting regiments, as well as, of course, one of the providers for costumes for movies. Huge list of movies on their website that you can look at and see that they're a part of, ranging from, and with upcoming movies such as Apple TV's Emancipation and another title called I Heard the Bells. But they've also provided clothing for 1883 and just all kinds of different productions. These are the go-to guys for that stuff. Please check them out, ccsutlery.com. Tell them the Writer Brothers sent you, and once we know that this sponsor's working, we could probably we could talk about making some deals. I forgot to look for it earlier, but H. Marie actually started, I don't know where to find him, and I don't want to spend time trying to find him, but she actually started selling nightcaps, knitted nightcaps, and they are on the CC Cutlery website. And so yeah, please check them out, please find them, please buy them so that she can make more and sell them. Arende writes in, next shows I'm looking forward to are the new seasons of Dragon Prince and his Dark Materials. The series was so much better than the film.
Bro, his Dark Materials, that one's so fun on HBO. Oh man, I really like that show. It's visually just
I haven't checked it out yet, but is it closer to the books?
I've never read the books, but I did watch somebody do a follow along, and they were like, I want to say it was like 80-20. I'm not sure. I can't remember. I think it's more like they're messing with plot points and not really messing with like narrative. Like they're keeping the central narrative but messing with the plot points.
So,
and Arendi says yes, it is. Okay, awesome. I mean, I was not a super huge fan of the anti-theist theme moving through the series, but I will freely admit it was a very cool universe they built and a very interesting way to create a narrative and create a story. So there were things I liked about it and things I didn't.
Anti-theist theme really well in the HBO series. Like it's not so much a plot point as it is a major character point. It's like one group has to contend with that while the rest of the groups are contending with other things that belong to them, and it's really well done. It's
Okay.
really fun to follow, and visually like it's really pretty.
Yeah.
Everything from like, no, I mean like they do this super sick like cut the universes open, the multiverse open, and the way that it shines and the way that it's done in the like passing in terms of wormholes, it's the best I've ever seen
Okay.
in live action for sure.
Well,
Then I might have
speaking
to
of
check
wormholes, John forgot to go through this week. Got behind on episodes, so
I'm behind on episodes.
If you
Didn't
wanna-
forget, I
if you-
tried. I just am behind.
if you want to bail, I won't be upset, but that's entirely up to you, because, I mean, we are, going to be talking spoilers, so totally
No.
your decision. Rende says, the respect the essence of the books, unlike some other series, cough, Wheel of Time, cough, Rings of Power, halfway through the Eye of the World book, so much better. Okay. Yeah. Cool, that's good to know. Yeah, I heard The Expanse was also very accurate to the book, so I need to read the book series, and I need to catch up on The Expanse, but the problem is it's over, so I'm not in a hurry. But anyway, predating The Expanse, sort of.
In the super hurry. I loved that show.
Okay. But Deep Space Nine.
Another show that I absolutely love. We take a trip through the wormhole to a planet in the Gambit Quadrant with the Kai, because that's what you do in Deep Space Nine, is you take the religious, I guess you could...
Leader.
Monarch, leader, oligarch, whatever.
Space Pope. Yeah.
Yeah, the Bajoran Space Pope, but she's only for Bajorans. Yeah, I guess she technically would be the Space Pope.
There's multiple colonies. So
yeah,
she's
you're
the
right.
Space Pope.
Yeah, I forget. Yeah, there's already Bajorans in the Federation. Duh. They just say take her to...
And they've achieved spatial technology.
The other side. And on the other side, what do they find but a distress call? Because every good episode of Star Trek begins with a distress call. And they come to this planet that ends up pulling them, or they find this planet that's surrounded by satellites. The satellites knock out their power source, forcing them to crash. In the process, there's an IMDb for this. Corio, do you want to take it from here, though?
Yeah, so in the process, they discover two factions on the planet that have been warring since forever. And the really unusual thing about this is no one on this planet can die. And so they've had no reason to stop the war for hundreds of years and hundreds of deaths. And this is one of my favorite episodes of the season one. By far.
I do want to say real quick, this is also an important episode for season 8.
Yes. And really, it sets an important tone throughout the series, because one could make the argument that without Kai Opaka's leadership, lots of problems happen on Bajor without her. Down the road. Her leadership was absolutely vital to getting through the occupation and should have been vital to going forward from here. We got the impression early on, all the way from the first episode, how wonderful and deep and spiritual and at peace, despite the world around her, Kai Opaka was. And a stabilizing element. Well, on this planet, while she's trying to convince people not to fight and to work together to mutually get off this, annoying little rock, what happens? She gets injured. And now she's going to be stuck on the planet for forever as well, because if they leave the planet, the effect of never being able to die will no longer work, and she will die. So they're going to lose Kai Opaka to this world. And the implications of her staying and trying to bring peace to these factions that have been warring for hundreds of years. On top of that, the implication that her world really does need her. And without her, things are going to spiral out of control in short order, is definitely felt. On top of that, we're not even sure if the rest of the crew is going to be able to make it off. I mean, imagine being in a world where everyone has decided that OSHA compliancy is just no longer necessary because who cares? We can't die. And suddenly you're in a scenario where if you die, you're stuck on this planet. Well, everyone wants to go home to their families. So now they have to be super careful about every little thing. I mean, how worried would you be in a world like that where there's constant warfare? Everybody hates each other because, when you've been roommates, I guess, with an enemy faction for, 12,000 years or whatever a ridiculous number it is, there's going to be some bad blood running around and you're kind of stuck in the middle of that. Which, I mean, I don't know if you've ever been in a situation where roommates are fighting, but it's not a comfortable place.
No.
And, here's poor Kyle Paka trying to bring peace to this, while everyone else is just trying not to get stabbed gruesomely by everyone else. And I think it's an interesting and a very poignant episode where the most spiritual, the most deep person is most deeply affected by the trauma of this world, but chooses to roll up her sleeves and try to help it.
Yeah.
And try to save it regardless.
Yeah, I love a lot of the... Did you have a question, John? Now that we've spoiled it for you.
Well, so... No, I'm actually watching it as we go. I decided I'm going to see if I can...
Try it at 2x speed so you can squeeze both in.
But I like a lot of... Well, I like a lot... No, just this one episode because it's so important. But I will try if I can. The thing that I'm hearing a lot of is like, think about what that does for intergalactic civilization. If Bajoran population, as they're not necessarily fully Starfleet type or human level of pervasiveness yet, and so because of that, they're growing into it, but there's a heavy relationship with their space pope, right? And so I think a lot of the things I heard based off of what you're describing, Corion, is that like she is landlocked in order to maintain her ability to live forever, and in doing so she is basically like setting a center for all future Bajoran religion and Bajorans as a whole, as like they travel space. Like she is now like, no, I've been here since the beginning.
No, they can't even
and
communicate.
I'm stuck right here at the center.
Yeah. Well, they can't even communicate with her on this little backwater planet in the Gamma Quadrant. She is stuck on that planet, and they're not going to be able to. Or a moon.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's stuck on this the grimy butthole of space, and is not going to be able to communicate out to the rest of Bajor.
But nobody's like, I'm gonna get there eventually, but did anybody like leave her there? Like get back on a shuttle and go home?
Well, I mean, I don't want to ruin the episode for you.
Yeah, you should watch the episode, and then we'll find out when we play season 8 with your new
At this
gaming
point,
rig.
I deserve it for being late behind. Like,
Okay.
it's a great episode,
So
but
the-
like
The basic
my
premise
theory
is
is that like
the rest of the shuttle crew make it home, or the rest of the runabout crew make it home, but they have to leave Kai Opaka because she cannot go with them.
yeah. So what I'm hearing is like they know where they left her, and now it's more about eventually reestablishing connection to her for the greater Bajor population, but that's not a impossibility. It's more of an when.
Well, think about it this way: if imagine, if you will, let's take the Christian Pope. If the Christian Pope's plane got destroyed and he wound up on a desert island,
Woohoo!
and for whatever reason couldn't leave, they'd elect a new pope.
Right.
Well, but this is where it differs. Do they know that it's immortal? And they've witnessed her immortality so far. So see, that's where it differs, is like if the message comes that the immortal pope is marooned on a single planet trying to help that planet, our job is to get to them and help spread the Bajoran message. That seems more like plausible, because it's not a leap in faith, because they've witnessed the immortality, versus like the Christian Pope is clearly not immortal.
Yeah,
Like they
but
only elect the guy closest to death. And
but
therefore,
the
like,
basic
they've
premise
gotten
is,
quite a few
for
elections.
all intents and purposes, going forward, Kai Opaka is dead to Bajor. And the
Right,
Bajor.
to me, there's no like belief that they're not going to fall into chaos with the remoteness of their pope, but to me there's like that inkling of like the persistent faith will prevail, which sets up a really cool potential for like how a galactic pope might exist. Is like they are stuck at a center point in the galaxy that now allows this faith, because it's between two quadrants in a wormhole, allows this faith to grow even bigger. I don't know if Deep Space Nine is like willing to commit to that story, but that I think that story just
it's not really
unfolds naturally based off the way they set it up.
No, the way it winds up setting up is that because Kai Opaka was effectively the moral rudder that kept Bajor on the straight and true, without her leadership, without her constant guidance, they're operating effectively rudderless until they can elect a new space pope. One that can be there for Bajor, one that can take care of everybody.
The Kai is required to basically stay on Bajor. Like, they can leave for certain stuff, but they're not supposed to operate off-world. That's why it was such a big deal to take
what I got
from
from
the wormhole at all.
the intro episode. The Kai clearly states that she is fulfilling a prophecy she knows she has to fulfill. She knows she's sending them into turmoil.
Yeah,
even though like it's technically breaking the tradition of the Kai. And so like to me, what I get is obviously they're not going to time lapse thousands and thousands of years to see how this Bajor population responds over time scale, but like theoretically anybody, you know, over a Kurtzman Trek writing new Trek could do that and
do not wish such evil upon the world
and not have to steal.
Yeah, no. We want Kurtzman to stay away from Bajor.
I feel like at this point, if we can figure out full plots for them, then when they put in their characters to fulfill those plots, we don't have to care because we know the plot line is going to be set.
Now, I'm going to borrow a
Bajoran. That's why I pitch.
Yeah, I'm going to be a bit of a Bajoran, like the Bajoran terrorist we saw earlier. I want Bajor for Rick Berman's. Okay?
But even he sucked in his own way.
Stop trusting.
I thought he was alright.
He was a bit more alright, but he was still out of touch with
trusting
female characters and what their roles should be in Trek.
True.
I want more people to start trusting in the idea of plot writers and character writers being two separate things. Like if that's how DMs for D&D work, like there is the guy who runs the whole event, and you get to create your character, and you get to pretend all the stuff you want to pretend, and you want to write the frilly backstory with the experiences that you experience. But like we really got to start hiring plot writers so that somebody can make all your frilly characters make sense.
Nope. Hard disagree.
Makes sense.
Hard disagree.
At least their adventure.
A competent writer can do both.
I don't. Oh no, a competent writer can do both, but I don't foresee the future managers, aka Kurtzman, like abandoning his drive for diversity. So if he's not going to abandon his drive for diversity, just add a new role called the plot writer.
That's not going to fix the problem.
Helps us help them.
That's not going to fix the problem. You don't need to hire a plot writer. You need to put plot at the top of your priorities ahead of diversity.
But that's how we get a whole new job that doesn't have to worry about characters.
You don't need that's how you get more crappy writers.
Dungeon masters. No, have you heard Dungeon Masters? They write the greatest experiences for their players.
They create
get those
scenarios.
People, the characters can suck whether they suck or not, but universes with people that are dungeon masters writing them, I think that job is actually really fun.
That job has already existed
American
in Trek,
Horror
though.
Story really embraced it.
Yeah, but I mean, that job already existed, though, in Trek. It's called Gene Roddenberry, and he did a fantastic job. Right? I mean...
Right, and that's what I mean, and I think that's also along the lines of this episode with the Kai, because the Kai didn't leave anyone in a position where their sole job was managing plot, managing narrative. Like, let other people try to manipulate it with their adaptations to modern society as society becomes modern, and have somebody who's in charge of maintaining the through line. Because if you have somebody in charge of maintaining the through line, eventually the through line can fit everybody, because the through line makes sense as a universe. And our universe,
but that's supposed to be the showrunner.
I don't like any of that.
But that's supposed to be what the showrunner is doing, right?
Right.
So
right, and that's why I'm saying it just needs to be a written down, codified position, so that way instead of
because that's
just creating more
complications of random
complications.
show writers.
But that's what the showrunner
guided.
does.
No,
right? So if he's
and
not
I'm sorry.
doing his job, then
Right,
get
but
rid of
that's
him
how
and
we
get a
get
new
Kurt.
showrunner.
okay, no, yeah, you're just creating
that's
more
how we got
hacks.
Kurtzman.
You're creating more hacktivists by doing that, because you're creating more nothing positions. Let me give you an example. Christopher Nolan is arguably the greatest filmmaker alive right now. Okay? Christopher Nolan doesn't only direct, he writes his stories. He runs everything we see on a Christopher Nolan film is all Christopher Nolan. That's why I have a lot of tremendous respect for the man, because not only is he able to write a plot with almost no holes, The Dark Knight, not only is he able to write strong characters, he's also able to put his vision on the screen. That is competence. That is what a standard is, and that's what we need to be getting back to.
How many
not creating more jobs.
How many streaming services do we have versus how many movies does Christopher Nolan put out in a year? Like, if we can't get a Christopher Nolan in every single director's seat for every single thing that we love, the next best option is creating a job that has parameters restricted to maintaining the quality of what we love.
I don't agree.
So that at the very least we have somebody to blame and replace.
This sounds like you're going to get an even more horrible Rings of Power.
Well, no, because we have to remember that, like, Kurtzman, that's what I'm saying, is the showrunner, Kurtzman, is supposed to be protecting it, but they're not. So what if
get rid of him and replace him with somebody competent?
Right, but look at how hard that is in Hollywood, because if you get rid of a showrunner, you look like a place to keep showrunners, so showrunners aren't going to apply for the showrunner position. So you're potentially going to get weaker showrunners like Kurtzman to satisfy the role, and then they're going to do it all wrong, and they're going to cost you more money as you're trying to create a streaming service, because you're unwilling to just create media for other people's streaming services. So to me, like, to skip all of the things that are already ongoing, the answer is to create a position that is bound to the product itself and not to the empire, not to the whims of culture, but
everything's bound to the empire,
to the culture of the product.
That's
right, and that's if you put something to the culture of the product, then suddenly the product can start to grow with the culture, but at the product's pace.
Yeah, I don't think
we
that's
keep getting this unsustainable growth where things keep spinning out of control.
So Arendi, I think, makes an excellent point in the chat.
It's about an option to what could happen.
Guys, I think Arendi just made the perfect point to it. Kurtzman would not have been hard to replace. Just ask Seth MacFarlane.
Yep.
Again, it's the
Seth
industry
MacFarlane
itself. Like,
Seth MacFarlane's another example. You just asked how we can't fill it with Chris Nolan's. Look at Seth MacFarlane. Look at Seth MacFarlane. He wrote The Orville.
That
wrote
the
it.
Industry has internal culture and politics that mitigate all of these fast actions. Like, do we not notice that Hollywood lives on its own Hollywood timescale with its own Hollywood laws and Hollywood politics?
Yes, I know, and it all needs to be smashed into bits.
And that's what I'm saying, is rather than
creating more jobs and regulations isn't going to smash it into bits. You can't regulate it into prosperity.
We're trying to convince billionaires to smash it into bits to fix it and be appropriate. But the only thing we can actually convince billionaires to do is to create a new position and title that they can put all the blame on. So if we
Here's what I'm going
fabricate
to
a
suggest
position
then.
and title that works with us for them, we can fast track a lot of this antagonized forces where
look.
there's the rich that don't want to change because it's barely
John,
worth it.
John, there's
And
an
then there's
easy way
us.
to there's an easy way to solve this. I think you made an excellent example of using D&D as a system. I'm going to suggest to you something. Try running a D&D game where the DM is purely responsible for actually getting the plot to move from point A to point B, but all the NPCs for each scenario you're putting your players in is run by other people. I would very much like to see how that experiment would work out
Me
for you.
too. I'd almost pay to watch that.
And that in and of itself is a great way to just spawn new information and new writing. But like, it's something that I've been bringing up more and more in my thoughts, and it's the idea of decentralized leadership. Like, thing that the Marine Corps has always gotten right, and probably for the next, until November 10th on our birthday, I'll keep bringing up stuff that matters to me about the Marines. But is the greatest fighting force in all the world. And every single military that has ever combated and lived to tell the tale and lived to write an after action report about the tale, the thing they say is that the Marine Corps order and the Marines as a whole are the most organized group of people that don't follow their own rules ever. And that's why decentralized leadership works, is when you put a unit in charge of a task, and that unit has one task, whether it's maintenance, operations, anything, and that's their only task, they will become the most elite at that task.
Well,
and you recycle them to other units to make them test their mettle, like the individuals, but the job itself and all the jobs around that job, that one task, are permanent. And that's what I say is the best method for all business as a whole, is instead of having your company,
John,
struck by one showrunner, make the product the thing and have people vie for the position of taking that product on. And then when those people fail, you can replace increments rather than trying to kill all of Star Trek again.
John. So first, we got to address Arende in the chat here.
For sure.
Apparently, Arende is very much missing playing D&D. And to follow that up, we keep mentioning D&D, and that's cruel and unusual punishment. Arende, I do apologize. If you are looking for a D&D game, I can probably find some people for you. Just hit me up afterwards, and we'll do what we can to help you out to find a D&D game. Now, that all being said, John, I get what you're saying. I'm not disagreeing with what you're saying in regards to military action. What I'm saying is, try doing it in a collective storytelling situation and see how it plays out.
Do it.
Because
run a proof of concept.
I'm saying run a proof of concept and let me know. I will say that I have tried similar in games, and I will leave you to your own devices to determine how it goes.
What I mean by policy and guidance is it's even better because D&D is the ultimate policy and guidance in terms of storytelling, where they have all these like booklets.
But that defeats the purpose.
That have all the rules. Well, no. So that's what I'm saying is you could raft the booklet to the product. And so the idea isn't to make people restricted in imagining whatever they want to imagine. It's about containing it in the universe according to that booklet.
We got to get back to DS9. This is dragged out. The only thing I'm going to counter with is instead of creating more ridiculous positions, there is a simple answer, and Gene Roddenberry provided an answer. Gene Roddenberry specifically created a book for his guidelines that he wanted to specifically follow, and they were strictly adhered to until DS9. What DS9 did try to abide by them pretty well. They just didn't quite get to them, and we'll get to it in a second when we talk about our next episode, Storyteller. And a lot of those guidelines were very strict, and one of the main principles was that the characters couldn't be in conflict. So I think what you're trying to get to Yeah, that's
That was
usually
weird.
the sound of a tornado. Yeah, I know we don't, but that was freaking weird. Yeah, we got a lot of wind. There's some howling going on. It's a little concerning.
Well, all I'm gonna say is this: if you end up getting blown to Oz, dude, watch out for my sister's shoes.
Will do.
Click your heels.
Might
twice.
just be something moving around, but
Thrice.
check it out. But yeah, it's really making sure that they establish the guidelines, and then that's basically what needs to be returned to when it comes to Star Trek, and really that's what needs to happen with all intellectual property. And I myself, I do have certain expectations that I'll set up when I'm ready to share my stuff around like that. But moving on, or not moving on quite, real quick to wrap up Battle Lines. Yes, Battle Lines is a great episode. There's a great a spiritual comment by Kyle Paka that I think is very powerful, that I took to heart, kind of almost teared up a bit, and that is when Kira's like, I'm afraid the prophets won't forgive me, and Opaka just responds with, well, I think they're just waiting for you to forgive yourself, and that's such a great message to say, to really change the perspective when a lot of religious and spiritual types like myself, we tend to create mental cages of our own creation, of our own imprisoning, because we get obsessed over, it was what I'm doing right or wrong, and am I gonna be forgiveness worthy? And so it's nice, encouraging, hopeful bit to remind you that maybe you just need to forgive yourself sometimes.
So the storyteller.
Yeah, the story.
So we have kind of two stories going on in this episode.
Yep.
At the same time.
Yep. All right. Synopsis from IMDb. Much to his dismay, O'Brien is ordered by Sisko to escort Bashir to a Bajoran village. He is to help out with a medical emergency that endangers the entire community. After arriving, there's only one person sick, the Syrah. He seems very pleased with the arrival of O'Brien and designates him as the One. It soon becomes clear that the Syrah is the only person capable of defeating the Dal'Rok, a terrible monster that attacks every year after the harvest and doesn't show up on Tricorder. Meanwhile, on DS9, Sisko tries to negotiate between the what were they called again? The Pack? Or the Paku?
The Paku.
Paku and the Navat, two rivaling Bajoran factions. 90 years ago, they agreed to a river being the border between their lands, but after the Cardassians diverted the river, the Paku territory became bigger. The leader of the Paku, Tetrarch Varys Sol, is a young girl, and Nog and Jake try to impress her. So, Corion, why don't you go ahead and go first again, because I feel like making you first again.
Sure. So, I mean, the piece that I really liked about the storyteller, it felt like this wonderful little parable about how sometimes the student doesn't realize they're ready until they're thrown into a crisis where they have to use what they've learned. I think we've all experienced that in our own lives in one fashion or another, where the first real job we've gotten out of school, where we actually realized some of the stuff that we learned actually did stick, and we were able to solve the problems based on what we learned. That's really kind of what came across to me in that part of it. As for the other piece of it, we're starting to see that Jake and Nog are into girls. And that's kind of a wonderful...
Audacity.
Well, I think that's kind of a nice, neat piece that they're going with here. That we're going to see Jake and Nog as they grow up trying to track down decent people to be with, and I think that's a fantastic part of it. But also that we have this very young leader who's not really ready herself yet. And so in a lot of ways, we're seeing the same story played out two different ways. That she doesn't realize that she's ready for the role, really, until she's forced to be in a crisis situation where she has to be what she's been trained to be. And I think that's a wonderful piece that we're seeing that from both sides. I personally felt that the storyteller component of it didn't super fit into what we know so far about Bajor and how Bajorans operate religiously and as a people and whatnot. I think this would have worked better if the storyteller was a different group of aliens, personally. But otherwise, I thought it did work. I think the Paku and the Narak there was exactly what we expect from a Deep Space Nine situation, where Ben Sisko is brought in to try to get these disparate factions that are appearing on Bajor to realize, no. Just because, like, yes, it was artificial that you guys all agreed to work together to get rid of the Cardassians, but now you need to take that artificiality and make it permanent. We have to do some literal world building here, not just like plot world building, but actual, rebuilding, reconstruction of this world. And that's a super important thing. And the fact that they're showing it off now, that we're getting those episodes, those story arcs now, I think is a super important part of why season 1 needs to be the way it is, even though it doesn't feel as strong as later seasons.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of things I like in this episode. It is a little weird that apparently during the occupation, these folks were doing this ritual every harvest and were left alone. Maybe that's how they survived the occupation, is when the Cardassians came and they're like, oh hey, you're just in time to meet our demon thing, and then it showed up and they can't detect it or do anything with it, and they're like, okay, this is quarantine zone.
Yeah, our angry cloud monster is going to deal with the Cardassians, so...
You would think they would sicken on them, right?
Yeah, right?
So yeah, it's definitely a little out of place. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense. It would have worked better if this was a Gamma Quadrant episode and they were some different aliens. But it's because it really quickly starts to poke a lot of holes. Unless they were deemed a crazy faction that, they get a distress call saying, hey, our Syrah's dying, we need help, and the guy in the Bajoran militia is like, hey, you know what? Let's kick this one to Starfleet. See what they do.
Oh man, that would have been a great cut moment. If it was like two guys sitting in the Bajoran militia office in the central capital or whatever, and they get the call and they're like, who are these guys? And they pull out a book and they're like, oh, it's these guys.
Oh, crap.
Yeah.
I left that stupid village years ago. Wait, I got an idea.
Yeah, exactly, right? It's like, hey, why don't we send this to the Federation and make it their problem? That's perfect. Dude, that would have been the best fix to this episode ever.
Yeah.
And would have added some much needed humor.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's perfect, man.
That's
I salute that.
That's my canon version now. That's what's happening.
Yeah, headcanon. There's two Bajoran officers who are sitting at their central command who just assign the annoying cases to the Federation simply because they don't want to do it.
That's exactly what. Yeah. Hey, Starfleet's here to help, right? Well, let's go down to the bottom of the pile for them. Oh man.
And yeah, it's just these two officers that are like Space Beavis and Butthead.
It's just two guys that legit have to do.
Yeah.
Like, they're like, did we really get that call? Bro, they always say they're here to help. They always say they're gonna do it for us. Like, should we try it out? Should we just call Starfleet? Let them know.
Yeah, this is the first time. This is the first time they
took the whole thing. I'm going home.
Well, this is the first time they do that, and then every time something stupid happens from then on, it's these two guys throwing.
Oh, they write it in the log.
Yeah,
that's just it. This is a situation that they would have had more information on. Okay, this was one of those episodes that half of it ages like milk, and it's the storyteller half that ages like milk, because there would have been, they're not going to send a runabout because they get a distress call from Bajor. I'm sorry. There's no way that they could just call the Federation directly. That obviously goes through a chain of command. Then Bajor says, all right, here's what we're going to do. We're going to tell them that this village is going to die, and that's it. We're not going to tell them about the crazy religious portion, the fact that they use an orb, all this stuff. It's a prank, bro. We're going to let them find out on their own. That's the only way it makes sense.
Yeah, that's Starfleet's problem,
Or-
man. I mean, yeah.
Or they did tell Starfleet all of that, and then Starfleet lets them know, yeah, so they're just gonna die. You guys know how? You're not gonna believe it.
No, when you watch the
They
episode,
just
John,
said they're gonna die.
you'll see what
Or-
I'm
or-
talking about.
Or even more awesome, this is actually what Cisco did. Like, Cisco had the full story, but he's like, no, I'm gonna screw with Bashir. This is more fun.
It's a bonding moment. But this is the part where this is the area in this season where they do violate the Gene Roddenberry Bible. Because they do have some character conflict between O'Brien and Bashir. Now, it's very subtle. It's not in-your-face conflict like you typically expect. It's just, he's a little bit...
They don't get along.
They don't get along. And that's you can clearly see that there's tension, and so... Yeah, of course, well, can't really say anything beyond that, but no, that's what I like about DS9 was that, I hate that Gene didn't get to see this show, because I'd really like to have seen his opinion on whether or not he would have liked it in the end, or maybe he could have likened it to what he wanted Wrath of Khan to ultimately be, which was, okay, yeah, we're going to have more action Star Trek, but we're also going to have philosophical, deep-seated thinking, because the other half of this episode is still super relevant today. It is a really great lesson in leadership, especially from people who are inexperienced and not ready for those positions. And it shows a lot of determination, the fact that she cares and that she wants what's best for people. It also shows that she's still very much a kid because of how quickly she gets into the shenanigans with Jake and Nog. But overall, it all comes together, and of course some solutions are found, and the excitement of Federation diplomacy in action.
Well, happy coincidence. That's something that I really enjoyed about the 2 episodes that I did watch, the Negus to be more precise, because there was the whole portion where O'Brien and Cisco discuss. O'Brien's like, I think you should watch Jake with Nog. Like, I think they should not be friends. And Cisco explains to him that, like, if I get in the way now, it becomes me versus Nog, and I'm not likely to win that one. And O'Brien's like, are you sure? And Cisco goes, yeah, you have a 3-year-old. Wait till she's 14. Like, and that's, I think, something that, like, I'm hearing a lot about this episode, is it's a continuation of that story in terms of, and there was the beautiful scene of Jake actually teaching Nog how to read, and they were doing it in private, like it was a crime, because for Nog it was a crime, but for Jake it was a service. And when Cisco sees Jake doing that, he's like, oh, that's my boy.
He's
and
proud.
leaves.
Yeah.
Well, he's not just proud, he is like, it's legitimately, yeah, I guess proud is the right word. I want to glorify it more, because it was a lot like a dad watching their kid hit a home run. Like, I've wanted you to play baseball this whole time, and here you are legitimately hitting a home run in diplomatic communique with an alien species, and you're literally breaking the hardest barrier, which is language, because, like, once you hit a certain age, it's like you feel really terrible being stupid, and learning a language, you are an idiot every time. And so that's something that, like, he saw his son doing, and I love the way the show set that up. And I love the way that Jake is like doing the right thing. So, like, I'm gonna do it, and it's gonna make you feel bad, but that's just because you're not listening. And then to see that being actually satisfied, like Jake was. He was being a good person. He was being the honorable person. And to see Cisco recognize that, and then also recognize why Jake was doing it in secrecy, so he just fades out to black like it didn't happen, because he recognized the importance of it all. And then to come now to what you're describing, I think when it comes to the fresh leader, the thing is with children and being young as a leader is some of our childish antics worked in getting away with stuff. And obviously we don't see it in adult leaders. So sometimes as like a young leader, we think, well, maybe we can pull one over on them by doing something they would only expect a child to do. So it really feels like that's a possibility. Like it would be something that would very fluidly happen in any type of situation. So it's really nice to show that the show isn't like hackmeying these scenes together. Like it really is fluid with reality.
Oh yeah, no, and a lot of Deep Space Nine really is timeless. I mean, even season 1, like it's, I would say Storyteller is definitely one of the season 1 episodes that I was remembering that you know is kind of a bit more of a dud, but it's not entirely a dud. We have at least half of a plot that is still timeless, whereas the other half doesn't quite stand up to scrutiny in the long run. But that's
yeah.
okay.
I mean, I'll freely admit when I do rewatches, like just for fun, I usually do skip the episode. So I'm kind of glad I went back through it and went, okay, what did I actually like and dislike about this episode?
Yeah. Run Along Home, I'll probably be skipping on future rewatches though. But but this one, no, because there's enough going on in the B plot or the A plot, really, because the A plot's more of a C plot.
Isn't that our ultimate goal with this show? It's like we knew that we loved these things when they happened, and we knew that they were good. And now, as we pull them back and we pull the curtain away, it turns out we were right. Rather, like there's so much of the story in popular media of like pulling the curtain back and seeing how grotesque everything is, and like it turns out it's not as good as you thought it was. But as we pull out these shows and we go, oh wait, no, our judgment was never bad. Like, yeah, there have been hits that have made the box office that we also didn't enjoy even when they were hits, while simultaneously, like what we called a hit, the rest of the world called nerd culture. And then we go back and watch it and we're like, yeah, I don't like this episode on thought. And you look at it again and you're like, yeah, it's not my favorite, but it worked better than literally everything I saw this year in Star Trek.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yeah.
That's kind of what I love about like this show as a whole, is like we are literally in a way satisfying our judgment of what good and bad is, because we pull up the stuff that we think is good and it turns out it's actually well written by the metrics we've been judging this whole time.
Well, the thing is, DS9 is aging like a very fine top shelf wine. It's even better than I remember
even
watching
for
it
a new
years
viewer.
ago.
Even for a new viewer, I'm disappointed even more in a lot of the stuff I've liked, because now when I compare and contrast it to DS9, I'm like guys, come on. There was a clear like the growing trend of like the absent father's the thing that sells. Like that's the story that sells a lot, right? But if you look, yeah, a father figure also sells. Like it wasn't one or the other. You could do one story that is one and one that is not. It's not one through line. Like that's the one that sells all the time.
Bortus and Clyden on the Orville.
The one that sells more this year. Yeah, exactly.
Bortus and Clyden.
That's a recovering family.
We got the
a traumatic separation.
We got good dad and bad dad at the same time.
Yeah.
And bad dad returned to good dad, recognizing his failure.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a whole story arc to a story that none of us wanted concluded. Like we were fine with Clyden being the bad guy forever. But then when we watched him come back as a good father, we were like, man. Welcome back, buddy.
Well, I was sitting there, I wasn't sure.
Because the show welcomed him back appropriately.
Well, the thing of it is, when he showed up, I wasn't sure how it was going to go down. I'll be honest, right? I was like, what's he doing here? And him just being genuine and honest and loving and realizing where his priorities were made such a difference. So impressed.
And acknowledging his failures to the person he wronged.
Mm-hmm.
And owning it like an adult is supposed to do to their child. Like when you're the one that does something wrong as an adult, it is more important on you to own that and show your child what owning it looks like, so your child does it in the future. And
So-
he did, and he did it honorably.
So fan mail from Arendi. B5 aged pretty well too, at least for the quality of the story. The only thing that didn't is the CGI. Arendi, there is a 4K fix in the works for the CGI in B5 that fans have taken on to do, but has been endorsed. So that is being corrected. That being said, I went through B5 earlier this year, and you know what? Even with the CG looking primitive computer, like Amiga graphics almost, I still really liked it. And I still, it now comes off, the CG now comes off more as charming than bad, I guess is the best way to put it. Like, at least it's consistent throughout the series. On top of that,
I think
I was going to say, on top of that, I bet a lot of people didn't know that the inside of B5, the O'Neill cylinder sections, they actually tried to do as a practical model, and the CG looked better. So
I think that's a really funny thing that the older millennials and just the slightly younger Gen Xers that like Lion have to like deal with is like, y'all legit watch CGI from its inception, but as far as I'm concerned, like CGI started with Transformers.
Yeah.
So like,
Arende,
anything less than Transformers is forgivable in terms of like CGI. Like okay, you obviously just didn't have these engines. That's clear. I can just automatically look at anything younger than Transformers as charming. You tried. But then anything after Transformers, if your CGI was made after witnessing Transformers and it's bad, I hate you.
yeah, fair.
Because
yeah,
like
my standard is
Transformers
Star
is
Trek
the
2009.
standard for good CGI.
Same with 2009 Trek. Say what
Yeah,
you will about the movie and the
Star
series.
Trek 2009.
2009, I thought I was looking through a fucking window. Well,
Dude,
that's
if your
two. Oh,
space
well.
isn't that good, if your space isn't that good and your score isn't that good, you honestly didn't try.
To me, the line is
Trek
Battlestar
2009
Galactica.
nailed those two.
That's a good
The
reference.
the
too.
RDM.
Yeah, and see
ESG.
that's what I mean. Is like your line and fact that like certain stuff that's old can still cross it. But like to me, I think 2000, like, is it 2006 Transformers?
Yeah,
It's
the abomination
such a
that
very, very clear.
yeah
That robot 100% looks like it's there.
the abomination movie that every time you say it adds another toothpick to stab through my heart. Yes, that movie.
Yeah. All right. Arende says regarding the CGI.
I know the pain I cause, but the line.
Arende says regarding the CGI, it's not bad, but outdated. And
Yeah.
then he says, I'm surprised you know that the station is a type of O'Neill cylinder. Now many people are this.
Or
versed
how
in
many
this kind
people
of-
are this
Not-
versed in
oh,
this
how
kind
many?
of science?
Not many.
Yeah,
I
well,
think
I
it's
guess this
not
is the
many.
best way to put it. While my father served time in the army, his actual schooling was he had a master's in astrophysics.
Not many.
And complex astrophysics conversations happened at my dinner table. So things like O'Neill cylinders, things like, I'm a part of the Mars Society. These are discussions like complex, weird astrophysical engineering conversations are kind of what I do for fun. So knowing about O'Neill cylinders, yeah, that's my jam.
And I'm more
I
versed
love
in
that, 'cause
fantasy sci-fi.
My wife and I just took a road trip, and we were like for like 2 hours driving, and the whole time we were talking about like astral projection and like the astral plane. Like it was not a conversation like, oh, do you remember dinner with so and so, and like we had alcohol and that was good. No, it's like, no, yeah. So like I'm pretty sure like the spiritual realm actually is a realm that we currently exist in. It just exists at a different frequency than us, and like we got into these like deep parts of it rather than I'm gonna be excited for what my son is like. Oh, Like, I'm way nerdier than I thought I was.
Yeah.
Like, when kids are talking about Star Wars and like, I love the lightsabers, it's like, well, actually, this is how the crystals work.
Well, I guess the best way to put it is I've had that experience with my daughter because, she's big into, she got big into Pokemon and realized that kind of translated into being a veterinarian. So now she's getting into like animals and taking care of reptiles and the medical kind of sciencey stuff there. And I think that's amazing that, we started at Pokemon and we wound up going towards a potential career path for it. So, you're going to have wonderful conversations.
Pokemon.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. That's what I got giddy about, is like the fact that infected you as a kid. I'm excited that it's going to infect my kid, and now it's really funny that it's also infecting yours.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I think, to me, as a nerd, that's the culture I want to perpetuate.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. Anything else with the DS9 Corione?
Well, I think that the more we watch of season 1, the more we realize that the implications for what happened in season 1 will really translate later down the line.
Yeah.
Like, if certain characters hadn't acted in certain ways in season 1, we never would have had the fallout in season 7 that makes the show so acclaimed. And the fact that they know their own history and adhere to it well enough to be able to reference scenarios that happen all the way back at the beginning later on in the series is fantastic. And I think that's what makes Deep Space Nine one of the better shows, is because it understands its own history and it's willing to play to it.
All right. Well, we do have 10 more minutes, and so I did just want to touch on a show that we did cover earlier, since we have basically covered the DS9 stuff.
Real quick, before we jump, fan mail from Arendi. O'Neill's cycler castles with spin gravity, solar sails, Shkadov.
Yeah.
I want to say
Thruster from Moving Stars.
From Moving Stars. Love this kind of science. Again, Corione, if you like this, look up Isaac Arthur channel. You're going to have a field day.
I like Isaac Arthur. I also pay very much attention to Scott Manley, which I highly recommend as well.
Yep. All right, so since we do have a few extra
minutes... I get
minutes,
the vibe that Arendi is 100% just realized that Corione is also of his passion. Thrown together.
Yep. So one other show I would like to promote, since John and I were able to finish it, and John didn't do the homework, we'll go ahead and throw you a bone for the last couple of minutes here. And that is, of course, the Hulu series, meta series within a series, Reboot. This show started off pretty raunchy, and I honestly thought it was probably just going to be another, or just turn into like a live-action Rick and Morty, just get worse and degenerate the more it went, and I was open to seeing where it went. Boy, was I wrong. I cannot believe how surprisingly wholesome this show actually ended up being. I think it's Stephen Levitin's most wholesome piece that he's ever been a part of. Because, wow, what a show. But, John, what did you think of Reboot overall, though?
Dude, I am getting really annoyed with watching comedy shows that also make me feel.
Then stay away from Scrubs.
Like, well, I love Scrubs. I think it's just so funny.
One of the best, yeah.
I binged that one a couple years ago, just in a row for the first time. Every episode is so great. I love the janitor. One of my favorite archetypes of a character ever. But no, Reboot was so in terms of it like that's kind of where I come at, like, my ideas for like a better way to fix a lot of the problems I see is like, if I watch a show like Reboot and learn a comedic interpretation of the inner workings of Hollywood, I understand that, like, just like any job, it's almost impossible to get exactly what you ask for. So when requesting it, you aim with precision for the desired effect, but not necessarily the desired title or role or interpretation of the thing. And that's really like what this show shows a lot of, is that you want to write the story you want to write, and you want it to go well. And then, like any business, you have to work with people. You have to have collaborators. You have to have co-hosts. You have to have people also writing this stuff. And I think it's really funny, Parker, you got into the idea of it being vulgar and grotesque out the gate. And as vulgar and grotesque as it was, it never again moved that line.
Oh.
Which was nice.
It was.
Like, yeah, it opened and it said, "This is my line." And now from here on out, you know exactly how gruesome and grotesque we're gonna get. And every episode is gonna be within that threshold from here on out. And that's something that a lot of shows don't let you bank on. And I think that's the harder part about the grotesque shows. Like Rick and Morty did take it too far, and only a few of us were like, yeah, it's not too far. And that's where this show changed the line, is that like, no, we're going to give you the line and we're not going to go back to it. If anything, we're going to also now spend the next 6 episodes showing you the bottom. Like, we're going to show you the least vulgar version. And that's what made it so fun and so funny, was because I was no longer worried I was going to laugh at something wrong.
Yeah. Well,
and it's a great show.
It's,
and it ended emotional. You know, and to feel so bad for everyone, but I also didn't. And
Johnny
that's what made it
Knoxville's
emotional.
Yeah, Johnny Knoxville's character ended up being my favorite by the end. I mean, they're all great characters because they recognize the failures of their past, and they don't want to repeat those mistakes. But especially Johnny Knoxville's character,
the only one actively not repeating. Like throughout the entire series, he is doing everything by asking for help. Acknowledging that he needs to go to meetings, acknowledging that like life is temporary and his decisions matter. Like all the way up to the last episode with the house purchase and the bottle that Hulu just willy-nilly gave him, even though they know for a fact that he goes to these meetings.
I don't think it's widespread yet. I don't think they knew that. I think some exec just heard, "Oh, hey, he bought a house. Send him a gift bottle of booze."
Exactly, and that goes to show how, like that whole scene with him, I felt was such a beautiful representation of like the suffering of alcoholics.
Yeah.
Here is this star who knows he cannot drink, but he just achieved a societal cultural achievement by buying his first house. His company
Staring down
is
the barrel.
applauding him, and but dude, does he stare it down? And the moment he sees somebody else in need, what does he do? Yeah, I was in need too. He's just open about it. He doesn't go, "Oh, well, here, come on in, I'm here for you." No, instead he goes, "Yeah, I'm not supposed to be alone either."
Well,
that was the emotional thing that got to me, was like there was somebody that was actually growing, while the rest of the characters felt middling and faking it. Johnny Knoxville is actually a man who grew from the failures of his past.
Well, he's still
throughout the whole season.
We kind of get a bit of a cliffhanger ending, and so we don't entirely know how long it's going to stick. But at the same time, the message that the emotions that got me were showing that even if you forgot to grow up, you still can. And I think that's what I loved about Knoxville's character was he wasted a lot of his youthful years being a screw up, and now he's finally trying to be a responsible adult, and now he's finally starting to see, oh, this is what I missed out on early on in my life. This is what owning a house is. This is what taking responsibility for your actions and actually trying to be a decent person looks like. And he plays it so well. I mean, H. Marie said that he's basically playing himself, but...
And that's the funny thing, is look at his inverse character, the young kid, who's like, "Oh yeah, no, I buy a house every movie I release." And you're like, that's really, really irresponsible. And he's like, "And then I rent them out and I started this LLC to do that." And if you flip that all the way back to the like 3rd episode where the mom is like super controlling, but now you take it all the way to the end episode and it turns out, no, this kid's actually just still young because his life is actually aimed in all of the financial ways. So like he hasn't had to like emotionally struggle because his life is actually curated appropriately, and he's actually intelligent on it. He's like, no, I have an LLC that runs this and rents all this stuff out. And it's crazy that like those are the two polar opposite characters, and we thought Johnny Knoxville was the more normal, but it turns out the nerdy kid that hasn't gotten out of Hollywood is the more normal.
Yep, absolutely. All right, well, we are coming down to the last couple of minutes, so I do want to thank all 90 of our YouTube subscribers, and if you are listening to this podcast through different means, whether it's Apple, Spotify, or wherever, and you'd like to catch the show live, please check us out at youtube.com/@TheWriterBrothers. That's our handle. It's pretty easy to remember, and so if you want to see, if you haven't seen what any of us look like yet, guess what? Catch us live every Tuesday. And those of you that are here, especially to Arende and of course Nemesis of Eden, thanks for popping in. And a shout out to Galinda. Hopefully everything's going well for you tonight. Missed you tonight, but hey, that's all right. Our show's here for you and here for everybody.
Probably in that, and for all of you that are in that post-Halloween diabetic coma, you know, we love you, we miss you, we hope you catch the show on the replay.
Yeah, absolutely. We appreciate any and all support that you guys give. We love doing this. We love coming here to talk. We love talking with you guys. And so we want to be able to continue to do that, continue to grow. But we're also going to enjoy the slow burn in the process, because there is something nice about having the smaller community mindset. So,
and it's not just the destination, it's the journey.
Absolutely. So from all of us here at the Writer Brothers, thank you for your guys' continued support. I'm Petey York. We will see you next week. This has been a presentation of The Writer Brothers Tuesday Night Live Show. The Writer Brothers. Unlike some shows, we are for everyone.